Okay, wonderful. Great to have everybody with us, and welcome to the Truth webinar series. We have the privilege today of having one of the big banks talking to us about rewards, but broader than just one rewards program. So I'm super excited later, so in a couple of slides time, to invite Christine Wu, who's an executive in the Absa Retail and Business Banking Division. She's going to share with us insights into Absa Advantage. So that's a fairly new concept for this market, and we're really looking forward to hearing that, because many of us know Absa Rewards, but I think what's going to be so insightful is how this sits vis-a-vis Absa Rewards. So those of you who've been following the Truth webinar series, you know that this will be available next week. We'll get it to you next week. I'm afraid it won't be tomorrow because of the public holiday on Friday. Our web designer has already told us he's not available to upload it immediately. So we'll get it to you as soon as we can next week. We will happily take questions and answer them at the end of the webinar. So I won't be checking the Q&A box during the presentation or during my questions with Christine. And unfortunately, if you raise your hands, I can't respond to that whilst we're on presentation mode. So if you do have questions, please pop them into the questions and answer box, the Q&A box, and we look forward to answering them in a short while. So I'm going to start today just going through a couple of slides, positioning Absa Rewards, which again, Christine later will talk to us about where that sits vis-a-vis Absa Advantage. But as I said, we have our whole series of webinars available to you afterwards anyway. You can share them far and wide, so it's available on truth.co.za/webinars. There's a lot of great webinars that we've done in the past, others with other loyalty practitioners in South Africa and beyond South Africa, and others from the Truth team just giving you insights into particular issues around loyalty. So please enjoy those, and they're there for your further, may I use the word, education or amusement. So straight into it, what I want to just share with you is, where does the Absa Rewards program sit in the South African marketplace in terms of usage by South Africans? So those of you who know our white paper are familiar with the first set of slides that look at the usage of loyalty programs within the South African consumer and the marketplace. And we see there that 13% of South Africans are claiming that they're using Absa Rewards. Where does that sit within the financial services environment? You'll see here that it ranks as the third most used loyalty or rewards program within financial services, because I think it's more interesting to compare within the category set than across all the broader programs in the marketplace. So we see the first place with F&B eBucks, second place Discovery Vitality, third place Absa Rewards, ahead of Standard Bank UCount in fourth place, and ahead of the remaining four listed here. What is really important to look at as well as another indicator that we measured in the Truth and Brand Map white paper is, what is the program that South Africans can't live without? And we forced this question through the research for the Truth and Brand Map white paper, that once a customer, a South African, had claimed that they are using, for example, eBucks or UCount or Absa Rewards, they then, only if they said they're actually using that program, could they respond to say, this is the program I cannot live without. And we see there that the Absa Rewards program ranks fourth. And what's quite interesting about this particular graph, different to the most used programs, is it's very dominated by financial services. So what is our conclusion there? Our conclusion very much is the financial services loyalty rewards programs really are adding the most value to their customers, in the sense that the customers are saying we can't live without them. So effectively, you'll only see the grocery loyalty programs, Pick and Pay, Smart Shopper or Clicks Club Card, coming in points, I think it's 7th and 8th on this graph, even though they rank the highest in terms of most used, because it's a daily visit maybe to the grocery store. But the financial services environment are the programs that the customers are saying we cannot live without those. So there we see Absa Rewards in fourth pole position. And my last slide from the loyalty white paper sits with the question we asked is, which of the following things are influenced because you belong to a program or by the program that you belong to? So we'll see if I move across the graph, the fourth bar along is where I bank, is influenced by the loyalty program that I belong to. And we see there that 32% of responded to say, this is one of the major outcomes of the loyalty program. But we put in brackets, you'll see inside the bar 56%, because to the right, you'll see all of the above actually needs to be added to the original 32%. So what we're saying in conclusion on this slide is that actually the loyalty program is heavily influencing the program I belong to, and the behavior, the program I belong to, sorry, forgive me, is heavily influencing the behavior I have, and where I bank is impacted by the program, which is good news because of the investments in these programs, as we all know, and most people on the webinar series are loyalty professionals. These investments are significant, and therefore you want to see the commercial return for your business because the change of customer behavior because of the loyalty program. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking because you haven't logged on today to talk to me or listen to me. You've logged on to listen to Christine. So I'm going to introduce Christine. So Christine Wu, she's a managing executive. Thank you for turning your video on, Christine, and your sound as well. Great. So I'm going to do a quick introduction, but really fabulous to have you with us, Christine, and thank you for giving up your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So before I go straight into a list of questions that I would like to share with our audience, I just want to give a quick introduction to yourself. So you're in the retail and business banking group as an executive, with your main portfolio as customer value management. So completely, perfectly placed to talk about these programs today. Obviously, your portfolio encompasses various aspects of that. So digital banking, strategic marketing, and the strategy and value proposition around the, I'm not going to say Absa Rewards, because this is so much more than Absa Rewards now, and that's why we're talking today. And you yourself are a member of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, having graduated at the top of your class. So an extremely smart individual who's able to fend off any difficult questions at the end of the webinar. You've been with Absa for a couple of years, and prior to that, you're actually with Discovery Bank, which I think a lot of people must ask questions about, given it's a newish proposition in the marketplace. And we watch it obviously from a vitality point of view and the impact on vitality in the marketplace. But your skill set, having come from an environment such as that, and also prior to that, you were with McKinsey as a partner at the McKinsey Group. So absolutely phenomenal CV, and I'm sure Absa are delighted to have you as their managing executive for such a critical portfolio as customer value management. So we're really, really excited to have you with us today. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to switch the presentation off, so it's just you and me on the screen, and then I can start asking some questions. So I'm going to turn the presentation off. Great, so it's just the two of us now. So before we go any further, I think it's only fair to say the subject that we've put onto the holding slide was about Absa Advantage. Now, I think if you're not necessarily banking with Absa, it might not be critically apparent what that is. And obviously we're super interested as loyalty professionals what that is. So let's start off, if you can, Christine, share with us what is Absa Advantage.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on and share the thoughts. So just a brief overview of Absa Advantage. Maybe let me start with the problem statement we're trying to solve. So over the course of last 2 and a bit years, we've been working quite hard at enhancing the core rewards program. So Absa Rewards program, if you look at where we are now in 2021 compared to the program that that was in 2017, 2018, it is like dramatically different, both in terms of the quality of the experience, but also quality of the program, the quality of the product. But as we were developing the rewards program, it also became clear that we wanted to take things to the next level. So there were a couple of specific aspects that we wanted to make sure we are able to address, and doing it, with a fresh angle through a new concept was, for us, the vehicle of choice. So what is it that we're trying to achieve? Let's start with, first of all, trying to communicate our value proposition better. Not in the sense of, you can come and get a home loans, or, you can open a transaction account, but really going into the detail and specifics around how we created these products, because most of our products, being a full value banking bank, we've got, a lot of embedded benefits as part of our value proposition. And we wanted to really find a way to communicate that in a clear, an exciting way, without having to spam our customers every morning getting an SMS from Absa. So, how do we communicate the micro proposition that our customers have, but they're not necessarily using it optimally? So telling them about this best kept secret was an important task for us. The second homework question was around, how do we drive digital adoption? How do we drive digital engagement with our customers? And again, I think if you look at the Absa banking app, I think it is really one of the best designed, extremely slick, excellent experience. But we want to actually make sure we also use this as a platform to engage our customers. So that's why when it comes to developing this new program, it is about approaching it as a digitally native product. And that's quite important. I will come to, how that, how that influenced some of the design decisions. And then lastly, I think we were also looking for an opportunity to communicate with our customers to help them bank better. Because I think when one of the things that also is part of customer value management that reports into me is, the complaints space. So I do get to interact with customers in terms of their pain points. And I think a lot of it also comes down to being able to communicate more clearly with our customers on how they should behave to really get the most out of the bank, but also to avoid some unfortunate situations that customers finding themselves. So finding a way to educate and also to teach them how to avoid some risky behaviors, I think was something that we were looking to do. So that's why we created Absa Advantage as a very complementary program to how we're looking at Absa Rewards. So how it works is that, like I mentioned, it's a digitally native product. So it's only available through the Absa banking app. And how we do this is that every 3 weeks, we will create a behavioral challenge. So something that help our customers to learn more about themselves, for example, how they're doing on credit, or it would be a set of activities to better understand how to protect themselves from digital fraud. But also there are other categories of challenges that surfaces features that actually would really benefit our customers, but they're not using. So every 3 weeks, there will be a challenge like this. And in return for engaging with us, the customers would be rewarded with a free meal. So, we always joke that, with Absa, there is such a thing as a free lunch. So that's a little bit of a synopsis in terms of how Absa Advantage works.
Wonderful. It's great to hear. Thank you, Christine. It was great to hear that you also look after the complaints space, because typically I don't see that in a lot of organizational structures, but it absolutely should be. It should be aligned to, trying to surprise and delight and really go the extra mile for your customers. At the same time, we need to be able to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. So nice to hear that. Thank you for the quick insight. So that's super that you've positioned it in a sense of why you're doing it and what sort of critical strategic levers you're trying to address, and then the overview of what you're actually putting into place. Are you able to share some of the results so far? I know, can you just remind me when you launched this and whatever results you're able to share with us? It's typically what most people are hanging on to hear.
Yeah, so we were actually quite surprised at how how great the take-up was. You know, I think my colleagues might be annoyed with me if I say this, but so a couple of things. So we launched on the 29th of January, so at the end of January, and within a week, we had 100,000 people taking up the challenge. So the rate of adoption was really, really sort of surprised us. You know, and when I remember when we were doing the business case, we sort of work out a certain conversion ratio, and we said, you know what, let's double this. You know, on the day of the launch, let's double this. You know, assuming that we're going to have double the take up, and literally within the first 3 hours, we surpassed that target. So just to give everyone a sense how you know how well the take up was, and also this also translated into a lot of real benefits. I think, you know, in one of the recent challenges, the feature, the banking feature that we actually we described, we actually seeing sort of you know 40% roughly increase in terms of volume that's going through. So so I think, you know, needless to say, it's a very strong beginning in terms of take up, but also we have been able to show that this really drives the right kind of behavior. So I think so far so good.
Wonderful. What do you think drove you said you had double the take up within the first week. What do you think drove that?
Well, I think a couple of things, you know, and first of all, a lot of work have gone into making sure the user experience is very slick. And to, you know, the listeners out there, if you haven't signed up, if you haven't downloaded the Absa app, you know, do it and see for yourself. And to your point earlier, you know, because as part of customer value management, we look after, you know, sort of the experience end to end. We look at the proposition, the design, but we also have to deal with the complaints if those are not managed well. So I do think as we approach the build, you know, it actually forced us, well, not forced us, but I think we sort of got into the habit of really thinking about what can go wrong, and making sure that when you design a program like this, you don't just think about the positive flow, because everyone always talks about, oh, you know, and then this is going to be so sexy, but we don't think through what the negative consequences are. And I think in this instance, you know, really want to compliment the rewards team in terms of how they've taken on this, you know, this challenge, and thinking through not just what can go well, but also what can go wrong, and proactively really thinking through what it means and making sure that, you know, the mitigation and contingency is in place. And I think the same ethos also comes through in terms of the core rewards program. If I look at how the complaints level have actually improved over the last 2 years, I think we've now got, we're actually in the position where we've got the lowest level of complaint, fastest turnaround time than it ever has been in the last, you know, in the last 3 years, I would say.
Okay, great. Wow, it's good to hear. Lovely. I mean, I think one of the questions that certainly comes to mind for myself is this Absa Rewards, or is it separate to Absa Rewards?
It is a separate program to Absa Rewards. Like I said, I think it is it serves a different purpose. You know, the purpose that it serves is quite different. Secondly, I think also the cohort of customers we are looking to address are slightly different. So in this instance, Absa Advantage is free for all customers as long as they're using the banking app. So it is a different population that we're looking at, and also the value that we're giving back. We're finding different ways of giving value back. So this is not the same program, but I do, you know, I do think it is an extremely complementary program.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. That positions it for us. I think a lot of people out there probably be wanting to ask the same question. What has been actually the most challenging thing about, you know, not just the Absa Advantage, but your role within the broader retail banking and business banking? I think often we forget about business banking, and these programs play such a critical role. What has been, broadly speaking, to almost take yourself out of just Absa Advantage, of having a loyalty or rewards proposition in a retail banking environment, such a well-established big banks such as Absa?
I think maybe let me reflect a little bit on the, from the journey of uh, developing Absa Advantage. I think first of all, it is extremely tempting to sort of build out the rules to protect the economics of the program. And then in the process, you're making the program so complex that you then need a PhD in order to claim and redeem anything. So I think the ability to resist that temptation is extremely important. So really making sure that whatever program it is simple, it is actually easy to understand. And one of the things that when we discussed with the marketing team is that if we cannot convey the proposition of Absa Advantage in a 15-second ad, something is wrong. So really understanding what is in the essence of this program, so we can articulate, we can hold on to that and protect it. Because like I said, the temptation is always, we want to construct all sorts of rules so it doesn't get too expensive and this and so that's difficult. The second thing is, like I mentioned, is to proactively think about the negative flow, the negative user experience, and actually address that upfront. Again, I think we've seen many examples where people kind of don't think through the negative flow and then just throw that to the servicing team, and these poor guys, they just get dealt with very bad hand. So really to mitigate that upfront is really important. And then I think the last one is that it's important to approach this from a real customer-centric standpoint. So this is not a credit card program to drive credit card cross-sell. This is not an Absa program to drive Absa cross-sell. This is really having to stay true to your belief that if I do the right things for my customers, they will do right by me. And therefore really designing the rules in such a way that really encourages the right banking behavior instead of profitable behavior. So I think that differentiation is extremely important. And again, it's a real temptation. We've all gone down this path where you're looking at the businesses asking for budgets, and then they're like, come, let's do this and have a challenge if they take up this additional product. So I think this is where once resolved is really tested. And I don't think it's a difficult thing to do, but it is something that, sort of reflecting on, I think we've been tempted many times. And I think I'm quite happy to also say that I think so far we've been able to really resist, doing the wrong things.
It's a couple of things you've said there I wanted to pick up on. First was around, initially you said, one of the objectives was around helping customers bank better. And then now you said what went through my mind actually when you said that is typically that might not be the most profitable for one of the standalone units within the business. And that I think in the banking environment is a very, very common challenge. That typically a profitable banking client might be somebody who has more debt possibly than a customer without, and that isn't necessarily helping them bank better. So I really can see how that's a juxtaposition with some of the bank objectives, and that's the challenge you have as being the customer facing role within the business. Not my sympathy, that would be the wrong thing to say, but my heartfelt courage with you on that, because we've been in that situation helping clients to try and balance that. And then you also talked about the need to have simplicity, because many of folks who've listened to our webinars before have heard us talk about just the good old-fashioned simple program is better, and the complexity of the financial services or banking rewards programs really are, they have become more simple over the years, but with that, they are still so much more complex than a traditional sort of retail swipe program. We've just completed a big piece of research where we looked across the board, and I have to say, looking at Absa Advantage separately to the traditional banking programs, whether it's Absa Rewards or eBucks or UCount and so forth, or Greenbacks, the advantage, I really see the simplicity in it, which is great. I just hope, we hope that the customers really carry on engaging with you. We've had a question come through, but I'm going to hold it till the end. I've got one more question, which I'd love to just hear. I mean, an organization such as Absa has access to, it's a very established, great South African brand. What local brands from a loyalty or rewards point of view, and what international brands have inspired you personally or your predecessors in the Absa Rewards team? What do you think are good loyalty iconic brands?
Well, let me maybe answer this question in two ways. I think the first loyalty program that inspired me was actually, I think in high school. I can't remember, it was Moki Lang or one of these where you need to collect 10 stamps and then you get a free ice cream. I still remember like how we always saving up and really keeping that card close to us. It really taught me sort of very early on that these programs do have power. And yes, we have become much more sophisticated in behavioral understanding, but ultimately it's about building that relationship, but really giving something tangible in return. So when we started looking at, revamping the Absa Rewards program, as well as designing the rewards program, we've actually done quite a lot of benchmarking to really just understand what could work for us and what won't. I do think one of the things that struck me was, it's a common theme that everyone is giving value, but for me, the programs that stand out, the way they're giving back value needs to be coherent with who they are as a business. So also understanding what the business stands for. And then that will in turn manifest in how the loyalty program is designed. So, a couple examples, I'm a big fan of Sephora, and one of the things that they do is obviously if you are a loyalty program, part of the program, you get access to, some of the stuff, they've got early launch releases, you become their spokesperson, their ambassador, and it's all because, the big part of Sephora's appeal is about the ability to experience the product. And that is also carried into how they design the rewards by giving early access, by really encouraging people to speak for the product, to try it out. So again, there is great coherence, in terms of the design of the program and how the benefits we're giving out. Another example, I think, I see that you've also talked about vitality. Again, like it is about, it's also about the brand is actually about vitality. It's about activities. So how that came across, was also an extremely powerful way to achieve that alignment. And that's why I think as we looked at, at Absa Advantage, it's also sort of the idea of, it's in our campaign, we do more so you can. So it's really about how we as a business need to do more to help our customers. So really achieving that coherence between what the business needs to stand for. And it's not always easy. I think, especially, we typically get into a benchmarking frenzy. Oh, so-and-so has a partner in this space. No, I need to have one as well. So-and-so, is giving, they're giving cash instead of vouchers. We must do that. So-and-so is doing this bucks. So that's, so it's very easy to get into copying and then you stand for nothing. So, so knowing what the business needs to stand for, making sure that the way you give back value is aligned. That for me is what really stood out in a couple of those examples that I just talked about.
Great, thank you. Lovely to hear Sephora on your international list. I think so many of us love and respect it. So maybe a bit more of a female bias in terms of how many female customers they have. But okay, wonderful. Thanks, Christine. So I'm going to have a look at some of the questions that are coming through. So the first one is from Peter. And Peter asks, is the change in behavior a sustained change after customers have completed the challenge?
We've launched the program in January, so I think it's a little bit early to say whether it is sustainable, but we can definitely see that the customers are taking, they're taking the challenges seriously, and that it has actually already led to an improvement in certain activities that we want the customers to complete. We've just launched a program, like I said, at the end of January. So we are still learning, and this is all part of the journey that we need to go through with our customers. And I think being a continuous program, it also means that we can then think of other ways to engage, to try and drive the same behavior. So I don't have a conclusive answer, but so far I think we've got a good feeling. Thanks.
Yeah, it is. It's super early, so yeah, you'd obviously need time to do that. My next question, not my next question, the next question is from Nick Chambers. So Nick and I, he's based in the UK, so your webinar today is reaching far and wide. Nick and I are both partners in the Customer Strategy Network. So we were actually talking this morning, and Nick has a lot of experience in digital and mobile loyalty. His question is, here in Europe, banks are now starting to show digital receipts within their own banking apps as a way to provide added value for their members, their customers. Is this on your roadmap as you develop the program?
Well, actually, there are many ways of achieving the same outcome. So Nick, I'm happy to say that we've launched Apple Pay actually yesterday, and for users of Apple Pay, what you'll see is that your payment history is actually very neatly linked already as part of Apple Pay. It's not obviously integrated with the merchant yet. It is, some of these ideas are actually in progress, so we can get a more direct download in terms of digital receipt, itemized billing, etc. But already, for the users of Apple Pay, you'll see that it's already enriched with a lot more of your payment details.
Great, thanks, Christine. Thank you. Thanks, Nick, for joining us. Lovely to have you with us. We have an anonymous question. As an Absa student account holder, so this is a little bit of a complaint with a compliment coming, just warning you.
Yeah.
As an student account holder, I've had issues with the old student monthly meal vouchers, but I see with Advantage, I've never had the issue. So there's the good news. What have you done to ensure customers are not dissatisfied by issues in redemption?
Well, a lot of testing, and that's the first. And the second thing is, with all the issues that we did experience on the student account, we've actually, like I said, it was really important to understand the negative flows, and we took a lot of learning from all the complaints that we've seen previously on some of the student account redemption. I also do think that the way the main banking app is built, there is a lot more investment into checks and balances and controls, and it's also on a better architecture. So I think we were able to eliminate some of those challenges. And then finally, I think it was worth pointing out that a lot of the redemption issues that we saw previously was actually in the USSD channel. So I think we are working quite hard to really just make sure that we iron out all these kinks. And it wasn't easy, but thank you for thank you for being part of our student account. And for the student account user, we also currently have a partnership with TikTok. So you are welcome to join our #0FeeSwag competition on TikTok.
I love that. Great. Just on the meal vouchers, are you able to share with us, and I respect the answer if the answer is no, are you able to share with us redemption rates? It's always great to compare. I heard the Vodacom discussion on a podcast with Paula Thomas, who runs the Let's Talk Loyalty podcast. She interviewed Vodacom a few months back now, and they were talking about 1 million redemptions on ice creams through the Vodacom summer campaign. So I just wanted to see, are you able to share with us any redemption sort of percentages of the meal vouchers?
I actually don't have that stat offhand, so I'll need to look that up. But we do keep track of, the best the best performing restaurant, you know, and that, you know, and also just understand how people redeem in the different regions. So I think some of those behavior insights were really, really interesting, you know, but I don't have that stat offhand, sorry.
No, no worries. I popped you on the spot there, sorry. Can you describe for us, and then whilst I ask this question, please, anyone else who's online, please pop any more questions into the Q&A box. Can you describe to us, you mentioned the chat right at the start when you described Absa Advantage, and you touched on it, but whilst we've got a little bit of time, a little bit about, so if I sign up, what would, for example, my next challenge look like?
So I think for the first couple of challenges, you know, we have gone with the approach because it's new. So we try to have, you know, as broad coverage as possible. So the first set of challenges are actually mostly focusing on surfacing the value proposition. And then you know, as we move through the, you know, the year, it then becomes a lot more focusing on yourself. You know, so there are challenges, for example, like reviewing your credit rating, you know, understand how to prevent digital fraud, like I mentioned. And then we move on to more complex topics, such as obviously understanding, you know, how to save, and also how to, you know, dig yourselves out of trouble. You know, we also trying to make sure that it becomes more personalized over time. But at the same time, you know, there are times of the month where we've got very specific campaigns. For example, we've been running this, you know, money makeover challenge with, you know, with My Fisher French for many years, you know, also looking at financial behavior. So we also just want to make sure the challenges that we release at the time will then suit some of these marketing messages a little bit better, and vice versa. So, you know, the marketing messages then need to emphasize also what the challenges are getting the customers to do. So we're hoping that because we are, you know, as the customer value management unit, we actually able to coordinate these messages better, so we can have multiplicative, you know, like really amplify the message. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's incredible that obviously over time, you're going to get such insight into which challenges are more engaging, and therefore the need of your customer base over, you know, whether it's self-assessment on the credit rating or saving challenges and so on. I mean, from a banking point of view, that's fantastic, you know, way of getting the further insight. So I love that. I've got another Peter's popped another question here, so let me get it for you. Are you intending to repeat some of the previous challenges? You say challenges are every 3 weeks, but that'll be a lot of challenges within a year. He's obviously thinking about it from a practitioner's point of view as well. The assumption is that you would repeat certain challenges where behavior has maybe not yet been shifted. In this case, how would you manage the perception of being a DSTV, repeating TV shows? Peter.
Well, I think the good news is, you know, when we were going through the design phase, what was really great is we really had overwhelming, you know, sort of support and a lot of suggestions from both the frontline as well as from the different product areas on how to use their product better, mistakes customers make, etc. So we've actually got a good library of use cases that we have built up. So I'm hoping that we don't have to repeat things, but at the same time, to the point earlier, it really is important for us to have an open mind, look at how customers behave. If we feel some behaviors need to be entrenched, we'll need to think about, you know, how to engage them differently or maybe repeat the challenge. So I think, you know, we are pretty open in terms of how we want to take this forward. We are also learning. At the same time, though, there's so much sort of demand from the different areas. Put this as a challenge, put this as a challenge. So I don't think we will be short of idea in the near future.
But that's great. If you've got so much engagement from your business asking for engagement into the loyalty program, I mean, a lot of brands we work with dream of that problem. So that's super. I really respect that. That's fantastic. I like to keep our webinars under 45 minutes, so they're palatable bite-sized chunks. So I'm going to ask anybody, we've still got, all of our attendees are still online. People aren't dropping off yet. So I'm going to just ask for any last questions, please, from anybody before we draw today to a conclusion. What I'd like to ask while I'm waiting for any more questions to come in is, given it's so young in terms of launch date, we'd love to invite you back maybe in 6 to 12 months and share the insight, and be great to see how what's really interested me is how you'll get that insight into the different challenges, how customers respond, which ones they love the most, and which ones are not getting any response, so to speak. We have another anonymous question. Might be abstract, but have you considered the tax and VAT implication of such a program?
In terms of, in terms for the customers,
yeah.
So I don't think this is significant enough to qualify as taxable income for our customer base.
Sorry, question.
But from our
bank.
Yeah. For the
bank. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. The question is for the bank.
So obviously, as before we launched the program, the accounting treatments, the tax treatment would have been reviewed and signed off. So I'm not sure if that could be a challenge, but so far from what I'm aware, that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, it's a very critical part of that sort of not last, but the less exciting part of launching program, isn't it? The compliance and legal side, but the tax and VAT environment is certainly something that typically does get checked off by the folks behind the scenes. So, the gentleman or lady who posted that question, if you want to ask anything else that gives clarity, maybe there's something you're looking at yourself and having a challenge with, we can always have a look at that. If you can explain it in a little bit more detail, we're happy to try, and either myself or yourself, Christine, or I'm even going to say it might be quite an interesting question for Nick. I'm going to put you on the spot, but to see the European point of view on that. So Nick, if you want to make a comment on it, maybe just let me know in the question and answer box, and I'll invite you in as a panelist. The person asking this question said it might be another question. It might be another question being asked by someone else. Any demographic insights on your challenges received so far?
So I think actually we were surprised in terms of, people sort of have a bias that young people are the digitally active one, but not the senior. But I think quite the contrary, we've seen, sort of pretty good take up. And as a matter of fact, I think, even in our digital base, I think, 50 plus, actually, the adoption ratio is actually very, very strong. So I think, that was certainly surprising. But like I said, it's still a little bit early to sort of be very definitive. I think it also will have a lot to do with the type of challenges that we put out there in terms of how they respond. So again, I think, as we expand the learning, we can unpack a lot of these interesting insights.
Yeah, and some of which you'll share and some of which will stay closely within the Absa building. And the question around VAT, it isn't really a question, it's just clarity. So thank you for adding this. I'm doing research into the draft interpretation note on VAT consequences of loyalty programs, and I was wondering if businesses have considered the impacts of what SARS may want to implement in their operating of loyalty programs. So there is a published document from SARS on VAT. I'm not sure if the individual who has asked this question is aware of that. If you would like it, I can send it to you. It's a SARS document, so please email me at amanda@truth.co.za. But maybe you already have that and you're looking for more insight. So I don't have any more than that, but I'd happily share that with you. So whoever is anonymous asking these questions, you're going to have to talk to me on email and I can send it to you. We have one last question, and then unless anyone else comes through, I'll close on this. But how do you inform customers that another challenge is available without spamming them every 3 weeks via mail or another channel? Are you relying on customers logging into the app to view?
Yeah, so obviously what we're hoping that over time customers would then be checking the, they would be looking out and waiting for the challenges. And so far, because it's a digitally native product, we have gone through quite a lot of effort in the design of the user journey to make sure that once the new challenge is available, it is in the most visible and prominent space. At the same time, obviously, this coincides with a broader go-to-market approach. So it doesn't, we're actually trying to make sure we do as little of the SMSing, the emailing, and it's actually sort of the best form of communication is when people are actually looking out for it. So so that's sort of our preferred approach, is for people to be excited and waiting for the next challenge.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure that might take time, but what a great challenge to go for. Excuse the pun. Okay, we have no more questions coming through, so I'm just going to put our screen back up so people know how to access the information. So half a second while I move across here. So we've answered the question. So we will absolutely communicate this webinar with everybody who's attended and everybody who signed up to the program, and we communicate it to the broader Truth environment as well. So this will reach a lot of loyalty professionals in South Africa and around the world. So really, Christine, I just want to say on behalf of everyone, thank you very, very much for giving your time. And it's always a great pleasure to have a real practitioner. When I say that, I mean a company who's delivering great loyalty and rewards initiatives, and not just myself hosting a webinar. So thank you so much, and we really look forward to catching up with you in a few months, maybe, when hopefully you've got more stats you can share with us once the program has had a chance to really get into the marketplace for longer.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and also thanks everyone for the great questions.
Thanks, Christine. Goodbye, everybody, and we'll communicate our next webinar very soon. It'll be sometime in end of April.